Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
And this is Jack from emailsthatsell.com.
If you're lacking inspirations for your next A/B testing, this is an episode you don't want to miss. We'll give a lot of quick tips to try for your cold email campaign, including time delays, compliment, and other actionable ideas you can try right now.
Today's the day we dive into some real actionable examples for running your own A/B tests. So if you've heard Jeremy and I discussing why setting up A/B tests is such a good idea in previous episodes, this is going to be a tactical guide for anyone who wants some more concrete ways they can set up A/B tests, or really just pick up some good tactical advice for running their cold email campaigns. Just things you can do right now.
Yeah, I'm super excited because most of the time we're talking strategies, which obviously we're big advocates because with one strategy, you can create an infinite number of tactics. But from time to time, we love to talk about tactics and stuff people can try. And it's very actionable, as Jack said. So that's probably something, a lot of takeaways for you to try in your next campaign.
Let's dive into the examples. I'll kick things off with this. And keep in mind, I'm going to be suggesting things you should change about your campaign. When you hear Jeremy and I mention something, you can set it up in a separate A/B test, or you can simply just put it into practice and use it for your cold emails. But my first tactic you can try here is, if you haven't done this already, start using a custom intro sentence to begin your cold email campaign with your prospects. So that means go into a spreadsheet with all your prospects here, create a new column that says custom intro sentence. This is going to be the merge tag you're using in your cold email software. And go ahead and actually write out different introduction sentences for each prospect, mentioning something that caught your eye about their company or about their online profile.
And to bounce on this one, try the Fox on a Crow approach, which is a compliment to that person as well.
In other words, this is going to be how you kick off the conversation. And it works because few weapons of influence are being used here. So like Jeremy said, if you use the fox and the crow dropping compliments, that's something that's been shown to work time and again. And also it shows that you've done your homework about that particular prospect. And this is going to take a little bit more legwork than a typical campaign if you're not using custom intro sentences. But almost every time it will prove to be worth the while.
Yeah, and if you want more information, just listen to episode 19, The Fox and the Crow. I would say experiment with delay. So one thing that not a lot of people are experimenting with is the time between emails. And the data don't lie. The shorter the delay between your emails, the more replies you're going to get. Obviously, they're not all going to be very positive replies sometimes. Like if you keep bombarding people every minute, then obviously you may get a reply, but not the type of reply you want. But some cool stuff that I like to try sometimes is space the first email by just 4 hours. So send the first email and 4 hours later, just send the next email, just mentioning something, you forgot or something that would be good to add to your previous email. And usually you get a lot of good reply, especially that the 4 hours, it can't be a bump type of email. So it can't just be like, hey, did you read my email? Because it's like too short in time. So it forces you as well to come up with some value added. Like, hey, here's an extra link in case of XYZ, or maybe I should have mentioned that this is where you can get more information or stuff like that.
One thing that I want to just highlight what you said there, Jeremy, was modify the copy for that follow-up that's being sent quickly. Because if you just dive right back into your traditional email to, or a bump email, like you said, and say, did you get this yet? It's going to sound quite annoying. And the last comment I have here, I've sent a similar message before that said, oh, I probably should have included this, and shared a link. And some of the replies I got were actually pretty interesting. One of them was, hey, this actually made you seem a whole lot more approachable. Yeah, go ahead and share that with me, or let's talk. And just, it seems like this kind of email has helped humanize the conversation a bit and show that there is another person on the other end ready to engage with them when they reply. Next one, you just mentioned it, the bump email. my favorite place to add value into an existing campaign is to take the bump email and make it even better by dropping in some extra value proposition or adding something to the conversation. Because more often than not, if you've got a bump email in your campaign, it's probably one or two lines saying, hey, did you get this? And that's it. So my second suggestion of the episode, take your bump email and add something of value to that. So you don't have to do very much editing. You can say, hey, just wanted to make sure you got the last email because insert new value proposition, might be able to help company because, and then insert a problem they may be having. So just showing them a new way that they can use whatever you're talking about to their advantage in a bump email has almost always shown to improve the reply rates.
I would say experiment with days you're sending emails as well. So some market actually reacts way better than on Sundays than they do during the rest of the week. I think it ties back to the type of market or the type of people that you're contacting, like some CEOs and directors and things like that actually tends to look at their email on a Sunday evening to get their week ready. So that could actually be a good time there to get people. So experiment with days or part of the days, not too narrowly, because obviously it's hard to send like 400 emails at the same time exactly. Actually, it's not really feasible. So experiment with part of the day, like afternoon, mornings, before work, after work, and weekends as well.
It also works for holidays. I've tested sending during American Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
And depending on who you're reaching out to, more people than you would hope actually will write back when they should be at the dinner table or celebrating with their families, whatever. So
I guess not everyone has a family they can enjoy with and, a quick sneak peek on the email together.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'll keep it going. The next thing you should play around with in your campaigns, change your call to action. So whatever it is, my suggestion, make it easier to reply to. So instead of saying, can we set up a 15-minute meeting, or even, are you someone that I should be discussing this with? Just make it even easier if you're having a hard time getting replies. So a couple examples, just asking, hey, is this sounding remotely interesting? Or do you think this is something your company would find worth looking into? Just really basic testing the waters kinds of questions tends to get replies from people who are busier, who are not entirely sure how to reply to previous emails. Maybe you're including some details that they need to research or ask around in the office. But if you just say, is this something in the ballpark of interesting enough to carry something forward? Typically, this kind of email gets a reply. And my advice, just use this in email 3 or 4. You can even say, I've been trying to get your take on this, insert a new value prop, and then circle back to, is this something you think your company would consider? This kind of call to action should help you get more replies.
And I'd like to bounce that if you're not actually getting not enough replies, one thing you can test very easily is you take 100 prospects, assuming that you got a large volume of prospect you can try, and try to do the mouse and whisker strategy, which is basically you ask a question that makes you look like you could be a potential customer to them. I used to do that when I was contacting financial planners in Australia. I said something along those lines, do you also do something for retirement kind of thing? And if they replied yes, then I could just reply with something along the lines of, oh, great, I want to ask because I wanted to know blah, blah, blah. But the point of that is how many replies can you actually get? And the best reply rate you're going to get is when people think, your new business to them. So if you can't get replies to that, then there will be problems with maybe your market is not looking after their email that often, or it could be simply that you're going into junk folders. And you could test with something called Glock's app that lets you see if your email is being inboxed or go to the junk folder or the promotional tab or whatever. So basically, if you're inboxing properly. We're going to put a link in the show notes.
Jeremy, I'm glad you mentioned that. That fits in nicely with my next A/B test or just cold email actionable tip here. Try sending your cold email with a different address. So you don't have to go and, necessarily create an entire new cold email domain, although you're certainly welcome to if you want an even bolder test. But if you found that your open rate has not been what it should, and remember from earlier episodes, that's between 40 and 60% per touch, I believe is the healthy range, then go ahead and send the exact same emails just with a new email address. Again, it can be with a new domain. See what happens. If you've had deliverability issues in the past with that account, then just by doing this simple change of email addresses, you should have more replies coming into your inbox.
One thing that is, gosh, I don't want to start a whole debate on this one, but experiment as well with the identity that you're sending under. Like, I know it could be like under cam spam problems, so you can't really disguise your identity. So be careful with that. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I just cover my ass that way. But I got a good friend called Amar. He's Indian, and he didn't get like a lot of reply rate until it switched to someone else called, I don't know, Jessica or whatever. And then suddenly he got like a lot of replies. So maybe worth testing. I don't know.
I know someone else who sends emails on behalf of an assistant saying, the CEO of my company asked me to reach out to you, kind of thing. And it was really...
I guess you could argue that, QuickMail is called Jessica, for you at the office.
Yeah.
Send under the name of Jessica. I don't know.
Or just change QuickMail to Jessica. But anyways, I'm not sure if that joke didn't land or if I cut out.
It didn't.
Okay.
Not with me, at least. But anyway, cool.
Here we go.
All
right.
No, that's fun.
All right. I have one more. This has to do with reaching out to a different title at the same companies you're trying to create deals with. And my advice, if you're having trouble starting conversations, email that position's boss, their higher up, to get the conversation started. It's possible that with many organizations, you're making an incorrect guess at who you should be contacting. That can account for some of the reason you're not getting a healthy reply rate. So just by going up one level and reaching out to the boss, finding out, again, asking similar questions like, is this something that might potentially help company X? Or even the more classic, who might I get in touch with about this? Or the more like referral type emails. But just changing who you reach out to within the same organizations is a great idea. If you're reaching out to medium or larger companies, definitely try this.
Just bouncing back on the identity as well, you could also experiment with different titles. Like, I know I've been turned off to reply to a few emails just because that's not the type of people I want to talk to. Like, I had like a really good email one day and I thought it came from the founder, but it actually just came from, a different title that I didn't necessarily want to have engaged with. So that's also something you could try. One last point I'd like to make as well is coming back to if you don't have enough replies. So let's say you've done your market propensity test and you get good reply rate, but somehow your campaign is not landing enough reply. Try to offer something that is really hard to resist. It could be your product for free, for 2-3 months, whatever, something absolutely crazy that people won't be able to refuse without necessarily going too much over the, what's the catch here?
Right.
Because if you can't really have people replying to such good offers, what are the chances of people to reply to the actual product you're trying to offer if you can't get people to use it for free?
I think that's an awesome tip there, Jeremy. Sometimes the most important work that someone needs to do in a cold email campaign is make sure you've got the product market fit there, and meaning you're reaching out to the right people and talking about the right pain points. Sometimes just a simple shift in what it is you can help a business with, how you word it, will suddenly get them from being annoyed at your email to very interested and needing to get you on the phone with them in the next hour so that they don't get fired because you've just hit the pain point on the head.
One last thing is, I would say, since we're experimenting with things, try to write an email without a single I in it. Just focus purely on the reader and don't mention anything about yourself too much.
That's brilliant.
not a single one.
Yeah, and I know it's one of the most common mistakes. So if you are listening and you know that there's a lot of eyes in your cold emails and it's quite writer focused or focused on your business, don't feel bad. It's probably the most overdone mistake in copywriting. Just take Jeremy's advice, rewrite it so that it's all about the prospect and see what happens.
All right, that's what I got on my list today.
That's it for me as well. Jeremy, thanks.
Thanks, Jack.
All right, so since today's episode covered a few A/B testing ideas for your cold emails, to close out the episode, I'm going to give a quick recap over the examples we covered. So first off, we've got adding a custom intro sentence. Next, playing around with the delays, specifically shortening the delay between the first email. Try 4 or 12 hours after sending the first email, send a quick message to your prospects. Next is taking the call to action down quite a few levels. Ask something very easy to your prospects to try and get more responses. Next, we've got changing the audience. So potentially reaching out to another department or even the prospect's boss to try and get an introduction to start the conversation. We also talked about editing your bump email so that it's including value instead of just the classic one-liner, "Did you see this?" We've also talked about sending with a new email address, especially if you're not getting high open rates with your current campaign. A couple more, playing around with your sending identity was covered. That's changing the role or maybe even the avatar that's signing off on the email, something to consider. Two more, try if you had no success getting replies from your audience, try giving whatever it is away for free. Something that's just believable where you're not going to have your prospects saying, "What's the catch?" Of course, if you can't get people to reply when you try and give it away for free, you'll have a tough time pitching when you've got something to sell. And finally, positioning. It's so important. Play around, make sure you've got the right product market fit. If you haven't nailed the pain point correctly, do some more customer research in order to find out what's going to make your prospects reply to your cold emails. Hey, cold emailer.
Yeah, you.
If you got some value from this episode, give us a high vibe by sharing a 2-sentence review on iTunes.
Or Stitcher or TuneIn. That works too.
It's a quick way to help other growth-minded folks like us find this podcast
so they can send awesome emails
and make everyone's inbox a better place. Thanks.